Hey, hello and welcome to this really fun tutorial by Flomotion, because today we are going to take a look at realistic physics in After Effects, like in this example. Or in this example where I try to fix the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Hey, hello and welcome to this really fun tutorial by Flomotion, because today I'm going to show you this. And as you have just seen, today we will have a look on how to create realistic physics simulations within After Effects. So how to create a realistic bounce, a realistic jump, and also how to create a realistic deconstruction. Therefore, we will go over both shots you saw in the intro. What I used are some really handy plugins, and I especially took care that there are free versions of them, so you can follow along. And now comes the interesting part for you watching this video. I'm also going to give away some of the pro versions of the plugins worth a few €1,000 to those of you who are interested for free. Just stick around a bit more and you'll get all the information. But now let's start easy and simple. Why is it actually so hard to animate that? Well, that is because all of those movements, rotation, position, scaling, are not linear but complex curves. So let's quickly try to animate a bouncing ball. And I try to do my best within, let's say, 60 seconds. And when you look at the path, it really looks natural. But once you see it, well, you see it. Because our eyes are really trained to spot issues here. So let's take another 60 seconds to work a little bit with curves in the graph editor to really fine tweak it. And now this is really advanced because you are a beginner when you use keyframes and a pro when you use the graph editor. So now let's watch it. And I hope you get the idea. The more help we would get from After Effects, the better. So let's just leave the animation and keyframes as they are. Or even better, go back to the first state where we haven't even used the graph editor. And now don't blink, because I'm opening up a cool tool called Easy Bounce. And before I get a lot of comments like, it is a free tool that you download and the link is in the video description. Now let's click on it and let's play it back. Magic. And it is indeed super easy to use. You also have some cool parameters, like for example the gravity. And in the pro version, you also have the option to add some squash to your animation. So cool. And by the way, if you need some more cool tools and scripts for After Effects, Mamo World, the company behind Easy Bounce, offers a lot of cool stuff that I personally use on a regular basis. Hey, they even released a completely free ebook all about motion graphics, I think it was.
Hey Flo, let me help you here real quick. So, the ebook is called Motion Graphics in After Effects that speaks to your brain, and if you have watched already a few YouTube tutorials about After Effects, you know how to push the buttons, but you feel like there is still a gap between you and a real motion graphics professional, then this book is for you. And if you're not so much into reading, we also have on my mamoworld.com YouTube channel these 1-minute tutorials called Motion Design Essentials. And they also cover a lot of the content of the book. And the best thing, if you subscribe to my channel now and leave a comment below this video here, then you can win a free license of Easy Bounce Pro. And Flo, I heard that you created the teaser of this amazing tutorial here, also with Easy Bounce Pro, so I'm really excited to hear how you pulled this off.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's exactly the shot I wanted to focus on next. And thanks a lot for all the free licenses. Bye. So, you heard him. If you want to have Easy Bounce Pro for free, simply subscribe to his channel and leave me a comment. And hey, there will be even more free stuff if you stick with me a bit longer. And while I was talking, you already saw what I have filmed for the intro shot. It is a long take that I have divided into 3 parts. Me jumping, me landing at the end position, and of course a clean plate. And now this is really simple. I simply freeze frame myself at the highest point and pre-compose myself. Then I set a quick guideline as reference where I need to land. And I can do that by simply hit Ctrl R to get a ruler. And by the way, if you don't need the guides anymore, I can simply drag them out of the frame and they are gone forever. So before I animate the bounce, I'm going into my pre-comp because now it would bounce from the bottom of the composition, but I want to bounce on my butt, of course. So what I can do, I can click on that tool here and now I can create a region of interest around myself. Once that is done, I go to Composition, Crop Comp to Region of Interest. Now the borders of the composition line up with my body and I can quickly roto out myself. Now, as before, I can roughly animate my body bouncing. And once that is done, it looks like you would not even show this to a really good friend. But once again, we hit the magic button and we have something really cool. And have I told you that this also works with the rotation? And to be honest, it works with everything that is keyframeable. So now let's leave this first shot as it is, and no worries, I'm going to talk about the explosions in the next shot. So here we are in Pisa. And yes, I've really been there. Some of you already guessed that it is CG with me on a green screen, but no. I have spent some nice days in Tuscany, and if you are in Pisa and you are interested in visual effects and it's not super crowded at that time, what would you do? So that's what I did, and this is the footage I shot. So first things first, let's create a clean plate, so an image without the tower. And there are a few ways to do that. And I will show you 3 methods, because I think with those you will be able to handle each situation later on. So for the first one, let's stay in After Effects, and we are going to duplicate our layer and mask out the tower. Now with the Y button, you can select the pan behind tool, or simply click over here on the tool if you aren't a big fan of shortcuts. And this allows you to move the image, but the mask will stay at the same point. Now let's find a nice position that looks convincing. Next, you can use the pen tool or the feathering tool. So hit G to get the pen tool and hit it once again to get the feathering tool. When you now click on the mask, you get an extra feathering option that you can use to control the feather amount for each part of the mask. And we end up with a really cool result. First one done, 2 more to go. So for the next one, we will quickly render out 1 frame of the footage and open it up in Photoshop. Here, let's directly grab the clone stamp tool. And yes, you also have the clone tool in After Effects, but I find this is a bit more easy to use. And with the clone stamp tool, you can do so much more than only removing objects. So good to know that it's there. So you simply hit down the Alt button and click on an area that you want to clone. For example, I want to have the blue of the sky. So I click on that. Now I let go and I can move the mouse on the tower, and you can directly see that when I paint now, it takes the defined spot as a paint source. Super cool. And when holding down Alt and moving your mouse left, right, up or down, you can define the size and feather amount of the brush. And with that in mind, you can really quickly repaint the part you want to remove. Okay, but as promised, there is a third way to do it. And this is the coolest, so I saved the best for last. A content-aware fill option. So let's draw a quick selection around our tower of interest. Then you could go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware. But it gets even cooler. Hey, go directly to Content Aware Fill. And here you'll get a preview and you can tell it which parts of the image it should use to reproduce the image and which not, by simply painting over the areas with or without hitting the Alt button while painting. And you also get a live update of your final result. Now that is some crazy stuff. But this is not a clean plate tutorial, so back into After Effects. Now in here I have 3 assets: the original footage, the freeze frame with the tower, and the clean plate without. So let's place the clean plate over our footage and mask out the part where we really need it, so over the tower basically. Next, let's place the freeze frame on top and mask out the tower real quick. But wait, let's think about our destruction for one moment. I want it to fall apart in different pieces. So I can now directly mask out those pieces. And as you see at the moment, I'm really doing this pretty rough. Like if it would be little toy bricks, but we can work on that later. So now we have almost all parts that we need for our physics simulation, but there's still something missing. At first, of course, we need a floor for the parts to interact with. So I'll also mask that one out and also name it floor in the mask tab. And you can get there by simply hitting M on your keyboard. And if you want to see all mask properties, hit M twice. But we are still missing one part of our simulation, and this is my hand that touches the tower. So let's find the point in time where it starts and set a marker by dragging out a marker from here. For that, I'm going to use a different layer as my hand will be moving, and therefore I'm going to keyframe the position. So Ctrl and Y creates a new layer for me. Name it hand. And I go to the marker and create a rough mask around my hand. Then I'm going to keyframe the position of the layer to animate it. Just be aware here to not animate the layer path, but the position of the layer itself. And when the hand has finished, I'm moving it out of frame, just that it cannot interact with anything else after that. So now we have prepared everything, and let's take a deep breath. Because what's next will change the way you thought about possibilities in After Effects forever. Hey, and once you are there, you will never go back. Inhale, exhale. Let's start with the main chapter of this tutorial: real-world physics simulations in Newton. Newton? What's Newton? So Newton is a super awesome plugin that brings realistic physics to After Effects, making your 2D composition layers act like solid objects that also interact with each other. But hey, as promised, I'm also giving away a few pro versions here for all you crazy visual effects artists. So just leave me a comment why you need Newton, and I will pick the best comments and provide you with free licenses. So with just the 2 layers enabled, let's go to composition, and all the way down you will find Newton. And when I click it, it tells me that there are layers with more than only one mask, and if it should automatically detect those. And remember, we have all masks on our freeze frame layer, so of course we want that. And the separate button will do just that. So now we are in Newton for the first time. And here everything is super easy. Let's just hit the play button and have a look what's happening. Oh, everything has physics, so everything is falling down with a standard gravity. Perfect, so far, so good. But for example, the floor should not fall down. It should stay static. So we click on the floor, either on the layer name or directly on the floor, and change its type to static. And when we hit play again, it looks better, but still not right. The separate parts should only fall after the hand hits them. And of course the hand should behave like we have keyframed it and not fall down at all. So let's set the bricks to dormant, so they wait for something to happen to trigger the physics. And the hand we want to be kinematic, because it should take its behaviors from After Effects. Because remember, we already have set the position there. So now let's hit the play button once again. And that is so cool. I still remember when I saw this the first time and I could not believe it. That was just a door opener to a new world within After Effects. And you have finer control over so many parameters like the bounciness, friction and so on. And this is only the physics panel. You can also control joints and many different ways, and also have magnetic systems. The sky is the limit. So, if you use the trial version now, or were lucky enough to win a free version here, or maybe you have bought it, now it's time to take a few days off from work and simply play with Newton. And don't forget to eat and sleep, because that is what happened to me the first time I used it. And if you are not happy with the result, you can also go back into After Effects and tweak the mask shapes a little bit. That is why I, for example, have the shapes not exactly straight, but already at an angle, so I know that the tower will definitely collapse. But to know all of that, you need to have a degree at the University of Trial and Error. And as I'm super happy with the result, I simply hit the render button, and that brings me automatically back into After Effects. Hey, but I don't see the animation in here. Strange. Nope, because Newton has created a new composition for us, and you can find that in the Projects panel. And in here, all the physics are now keyframed, and you can see that when you hit U twice. But that also means that I can now take some more time to work a little bit on the masks, because at least our tower should look like a real one in the beginning. And for some more details in the masks, I'm also going to key out the sky with the key light effect. So bring it onto the layer and simply choose the blue sky as my color. But I'm not setting it to a final result, because that will also already correct spill issues. That means it will try to reduce the blue color in the tower. But even though this is a nice feature if you have a green or blue screen where you want to reduce the blue or green tint on the actor, we don't want that here. Because the blue in the tower is actually real and therefore realistic. So let's just set this to intermediate, and in this way we look at the original colors again. Great. So now let's quickly duplicate the footage and put it on top, because I want to roto out myself. And therefore let's quickly trim the layer to the time span where something would be behind myself. So from here to here. And now, because we don't really want to do a roto, let's just use the roto brush tool. And therefore simply double click on the layer and you'll find the roto brush tool over here. Now you can simply paint over the part that you want to roto, just like so, and After Effects will automatically detect something for us. Great. And if there's something wrong or too much, simply hold down Alt and paint over it with the red brush. And if you want to have something again, paint over it with the green brush. And when you simply go forward frame by frame, it will recalculate each frame for you. And in that way, you can quickly skip through the footage and look for issues. So once you have done that, simply click the freeze button. And in that way, After Effects will calculate everything that you have drawn, all your brush strokes, into the roto work. And that will leave us with this roto brush tool effect, where you can set up a little bit of feathering and also enable motion blur, because this will really help giving us some cool feathered edges, especially when I'm running out of frame. Perfect. So now we have something like this. And this already works pretty well, but of course we need to work a little bit on the overall roto of all the small pieces and all the tourists over here. So let's quickly once again duplicate the footage and call it small pieces plus the floor. And now quickly roto that out around the floor and all the way around here and around the floor. Okay, now we have something like this. Super cool. And before we start with the fun part, and by that of course I mean all the explosions, let's quickly work a little bit on the 3D look of our tower, especially our main part here, because as soon as we have cutted all of this out and we have this physics animation that of course is just on 2D objects, you see that this has no dimension to it. You can't see the back of the tower. Hey, well, let's fix that. So let's find it, simply duplicate it and bring it beneath the mask 4. I'm calling this mask 4 back part. Now I can hit U to see all the keyframes and simply delete them. And now with that pick whip I can connect them again, and in that way I can move it, but when I scrub through the timeline it still does the same movement. Perfect. So let's reset it and hit W to get the rotation properties, and by holding down Shift it snaps. So let's rotate and position it in the back, and now I'm just working on that mask here a little bit to give it that three-dimensional look. Now we can actually see inside it. Perfect. But let's also fake a small shadow over here. We can do that in two different ways. We could bring out a levels effect, bring it onto the back, and simply get rid of the white, and in that way the back would just be darker. Or we can simply create a new layer, make it like grayish, bring it in between, and then simply give it that same roundness. Feather this and go down with the opacity. Now when I turn this on and off, you see that we have created a little bit of depth in a really quick way. Perfect. And also connect our dark gray solid, which is the shadow, to the mask 4. That way it will also fall down in the same way. And also it looks a little bit strange maybe over here, and this is because of the layer stacking, because that part is in front of that layer. So let's just bring this one beneath, and now this just looks a little bit more realistic. Obviously you could take more time, and we could maybe also make this one three-dimensional. So now all of this just looks a little bit more realistic overall. And believe me, you can spend hours fine tweaking. I once again teamed up with Action VFX, as they simply have the best visual effects asset library out there. And with their new subscription plan, this is also super cheap. You pay around $14 per month, I think. In my tests, I found that 4 types of assets really sell the shot. Of course, explosions for the big tower impacts. Even though I'm not sure if anything would explode there, but a VFX shot without an explosion is simply no VFX shot. And then I used falling glass as small pieces that are falling down, falling dust as bigger pieces, and a combination of dust waves and debris for the ground impacts. So I have already imported the Action VFX stuff over here, some explosions, some dirt blasts, and let's now just really quickly go through this to show you my workflow. So let's go through this where we have the first big impact over here. So let's just add an explosion. Yes, this one looks really cool. Like whatever is in that tower, it would definitely explode like that. And the impact would be maybe just around here. We bring it beneath the small pieces and the floor, and also behind myself. And let's just have a look. Okay, maybe this is just a bit too big. And let's also bring this behind all of our masks here. Also adjust the levels. And maybe this is just too saturated overall. And this is the essential part of all of this. Just don't add an explosion. So just think about what would happen. So for example, I have a dirt blast over here. And also this one is a really huge one, but hey, I actually like the top part here. So maybe we can simply integrate that into the explosion. And let's actually put that in front of the tower. So we stack this a little bit in depth. What would also happen would be some debris fly through the air. So let's bring out the debris and place it somewhere behind myself, because the plan is to feel something flying out here. So we see the impact is coming from there and it shoots out all the stones and debris in that direction. Yes, you see that? That's really cool. And let's bring the debris behind the dirt blast so it's covered and coming out there. We can also place something when it hits over here. Let's add the front explosion. Yes, why not do all of this a little bit over the top? And you see I have placed it between the front and the back. Okay, this looks like a really fun destruction scene. So let's just have fun with one more object. Which one do we take this time? Maybe the dust wave front. And there's also a shadow element that comes with it. So this time I'm not dragging it out because I want to have it in the same position. So here's a real cool trick. I duplicate it by hitting Ctrl D, take the one that I want to have as a shadow, hold down Alt, and now I drag it onto that clip. And you've seen that. Now it has replaced it, but it's in the same position. And when I turn it on and off, you see that this is a shadow layer, especially for that dust wave. And as a final step, let's add some overall glow and make the explosion slide up the walls and its surroundings. So for that, I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, call it glow, and add a glow effect to it. And in here, I'm going to create two glows. The first one is simply to make the explosions themselves glow a bit more. So I play with the threshold so it only picks the brightest parts. Then I bring up the radius a little bit, so it glows a little bit around the edges, and then I play with the intensity until I like it. So the next glow will be there to lighten up the surrounding for an interactive light. So here I choose about the same threshold, but now I bring up the radius to a really high number. And this time I bring down the intensity. So when I turn this on and off now, you see that the glowing light interacts with the other parts. Perfect. So now we're almost at the end. So as a final step, let's add some motion blur by enabling it for all the construction layers, and that will also enable it for the whole composition. And I think I will spend more time now fine tweaking it, adding more dust and debris, because in my example you see here I used, believe it or not, almost 100 different assets to make it look convincing. And I would also recommend to you that you also spend some time in After Effects, as I really hope that you learned something today about real-world physics and how to incorporate them into your shot. And hey, if you really learned something, feel free to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment or subscribe to my channel, because in that way I'm forced to do more of those tutorials. But for now, I wish you a lot of fun bouncing around in After Effects.